like the right approach?
Yes.
DeLoatche. Call in DeLoatche.
So
Wow, you should be a market.
he is our speaker today. I will let him take it away.
All right. Again, my name is Jonathan DeLoatche. I am the co-founder and partner at DeLoatche PC. We have offices currently in Virginia Beach, Roanoke, the Eastern Shore of Virginia, and Fairfax, Virginia. We primarily do personal injury matters, consisting of nursing home litigation, slip and falls, dog bites, and our most prevalent area of law is auto accidents. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Just to let you know my favorite thing, I'm lazy. I just want to plop my tail on the beach, have some music, basically cooler beer. I'm good for the day. So, typical situation, there are many insurance commercials on nowadays, fighting for your business. Some of the commercials are good, some are extra special good, and this is a typical situation.
You're so busy watching me tailgate that you don't see the one in front of you. Your company car insurance, they might not pay for this. So get Allstate. You better protect it from mayhem. Like me.
We don't need to promote Allstate, but.
And we are not promoting Allstate. I will tell you that Allstate is a very difficult company to work with on the personal injury side. But unlike a lot of the other commercials for insurance, this is a typical situation that happens that actually asks you, hey, what kind of insurance do you have? Take a look at it before.
Screen thing again.
Bottom right.
We're having a problem. Oh, up here.
No, to the right. Yeah, there.
There we go. Sorry.
So unfortunately, after incidents like that, we have clients come into our office all the time. And one of the first questions we ask is, well, who do you have insurance with? And do you know what coverages you have? And invariably, clients may know who their insurance company is, but they have absolutely no idea what coverages they have. So who sitting in this room can tell me what coverages they have on their automobile insurance policy right off the top of their head?
I
I would expect that.
I got a bill, so I
I
just.
would certainly expect that, but
I've got it now.
most people don't know. And the time to know is before you actually get into an accident, so you can better prepare yourself in case you were hit by somebody or you hit somebody. And these are important things to know. So a lot of times when clients come into the office, they will basically state, when asked that question, oh, I have full coverage. And I ask them, do you know what full coverage means? And most of the time, they do not know. So basically, we have different types of insurances on our automobile liability policies. Obviously, we have our liability insurance, and that's what protects you in case you strike somebody and injure somebody. That's the coverage that will pay bodily injury claims, and we'll go over all the things that it covers in the state of Virginia. You also have your property damage, which obviously will pay for the other person's property damage in the event that you do hit them and the accident is your fault. Now, one insurance that a lot of people do not know a whole heck of a lot about is underinsured and uninsured motorist protection. Uninsured motorist protection is a requirement in the state of Virginia. Every single policy in the state of Virginia has it, and what it's designed to do is if you are struck by somebody who does not have automobile insurance, you can collect under your own policy. And that is a heck of a lot more prevalent than you think. There are many, many people out here who drive without automobile insurance, and it's for a variety of reasons, and cost is one of the major factors of why people don't have insurance. So that's what happens when you have a driver who hits you who doesn't have insurance. You go under your uninsured motorist coverage. Underinsured motorist protection is a little bit different. Underinsured motorist protection helps you when the person that strikes you may have a minimum limits policy, which here in the state of Virginia currently is $30,000. If your case is worth more than that, your damages are worthy of more than $30,000, and you have more insurance yourself under your automobile policy, then the driver who hit you is underinsured. And you can go under your insurance and collect the difference between the two coverages. So if somebody has $30,000 in coverage and you have $50,000 in coverage, that person is potentially underinsured by $20,000. So in a case that would be worth $50,000, how it would happen is the liability carrier would pay their $30,000. You would then submit a claim under your own policy, and you can collect up to an additional additional $20,000 to total that 50. So the law is going to change. It's going to change very soon. That is the typical scenario now. But in 2025, the current liability limits of $30,000 are going to increase to $50,000 per person, $100,000 per accident. And what that means is any individual injured in an accident would be able to recover up to $50,000. And every person, if you have 3 or 4 people involved in the accident, all under the same policy, the most that all 4 of them combined could collect would be $100,000. So those are going to be the minimum limits starting in 2025. In addition, Virginia is also changing the law about uninsured and underinsured motorist protection. As I stated now, you would only be able to collect in that scenario where a defendant had $30,000 in coverage and you had $50,000. The most you would be able to collect in that case is $50,000 total. Virginia's going to change that in 2025. You're going to be able to stack those two coverages, which means in this same scenario that you could have the defendant's $30,000 and then you could stack your entire $50,000 on top and collect up to $80,000. So us plaintiffs' lawyers are very, very excited about this change. It's something that's going to help plaintiffs out immensely because, as we all know, rising cost of healthcare right now, you spend the night in the hospital, you're usually going to look at a bill anywhere between $10,000 to $25,000, depending on whether you're a trauma patient. And the current liability limits just don't help people enough and cover them for all the damages they sustain. So I will tell you that as a personal injury attorney, I always recommend to my clients, even now, that they should increase their coverage to make sure that there's peace of mind in case they hit somebody and cause a catastrophic injury, or they get hit by somebody else who just doesn't have enough insurance. And generally the amounts that I recommend are $100,000 per person, $300,000 per accident. And as I'll state later on, there's not a heck of a lot of difference in money. It's not as much as you would think. But here we go with collision coverage. Now, collision coverage is a coverage that, again, it's optional. You do not have to have collision coverage on your policy, but it's always a good idea to have it. When you have collision coverage on your automobile policy, that's the definition of having full coverage. And all collision coverage does is that if you hit somebody, you cause the accident, you could pay your deductible and have your automobile insurance fix your car. That's simple as that. If you don't have collision coverage and you hit somebody, you're out of pocket for your repairs. So it's always a good idea to add collision coverage to your policy if you do not have that. Another optional payment that's very popular is MedPay. It's short for medical payments. And in situations where folks have health insurance, which many people do, there's still a fair amount of folks who do not. For those who do not, medical payments, I say, is a must, because one of the major reasons statistically that you end up at a doctor or in a hospital or anything along those lines is because of an automobile accident. Statistics bear that out. But what medical payments does is you pay a premium. Generally, coverages will start at $1,000. I can tell you USAA insurance will write coverages up to $100,000 for medical payments. And what medical payments does is that if you're injured by an automobile, you don't have to be in an automobile. The automobile just needs to be involved. So if you're a pedestrian walking down the street and you hit by a car, you're covered under your medical payments. If you're riding in somebody else's vehicle, you're covered under your medical payments. If you have a resident relative who is injured in an automobile accident or an accident involving an automobile, they are covered under your policy. And what medical payments will pay is any out-of-pocket expenses that you have, and it will also pay, even if you have health insurance, the amount health insurance pays towards that bill. Yes, ma'am.
Could you say it again? You said if you have a resident,
Relative.
you have a relative in your household, they're covered if they're in someone else's vehicle?
Say your 10-year-old daughter is in their friend's mom's vehicle and they get involved in an accident. Because they are a resident relative of a person who has medical payments on their policy, they're covered. They don't have to be the named insured, they don't have to be in the insured vehicle, they're just covered because the resident relative of theirs has that policy. There are situations where you may have a parent and an older daughter who's on a separate insurance policy and they both have medical payments. You're covered under both of those policies. If you have multiple vehicles on your policy and you pay a premium for medical payments on each vehicle, you can stack up to 4 vehicles on your policy to come up with that. As an example, I've got 2 vehicles on my policy. I've got $10,000 in medical payments on each of them. So if I or a resident relative of mine got in an accident involving a car, they would be covered up to $20,000. And what that $20,000 again pays is any out-of-pocket expenses that you have for the medical bill by way of co-pays or any deductibles or anything along those lines. But if you have health insurance, it will also pay the amount health insurance actually paid towards that bill. Not the contractual write-off or the adjustment, but the actual amount. So, as I stated before, if you don't have health insurance, it's a crucial coverage to add to your automobile policy. But if you do have health insurance as well, it's still a great coverage to have. It's relatively cheap. I believe for my vehicles, my 2 cars that I have $10,000 on there, for a 6-month premium, I pay $36. So it's very cheap to have. And you can use the medical payments money for any reason. It's yours. As an example, several years ago, driving down Elbow Road in city of Chesapeake, which is a pretty dangerous road. Don't know if you guys know anything about it. But yes, a deer decided to come into my path and stand in the middle of the road and swerved to avoid it, went into a ditch, plowed into a tree in the ditch, smacked my head on the steering wheel. I knew immediately I was concussed. Crawled out of the car and the passerby asked if I was okay, and the first thing I said is the deer okay? Did I hit the deer? Yes, the deer got away. Unscathed. But it's a situation where the deer caused the accident, but I can't sue the deer. So my car was totaled. The next day, as I said, knew I was concussed, woke up throwing up the next day. Because my father had a history of a subdural hematoma previously, my sister-in-law made me go to the emergency room. And I told her, all they're going to do is give me a CAT scan. They're going to tell me I have a concussion. They're going to send me on my way, which is exactly what happened. However, the good news in her forcing me to do that, and she's a nurse, by the way, that's why she forced me, I got the benefit of using my medical payments on that. Health insurance paid the bill. I had my deductible that I had to pay. I submitted those amounts to my automobile insurance company, got a decent chunk of change back from them for those, and I used it to put a down payment on a new car. So it doesn't have to be used for medical bills. It could be used for any purpose whatsoever once it's collected. The design, of course, is to pay any outstanding medical bills. But if you don't have them because insurance covers it, use it for something else. So in a situation where you are injured by somebody else, you can collect. You can collect if you have, and let me also say if you have health insurance as well. You get your health insurance, number one, to pay those hospital bills, medical bills, whatever they may be. That's the first thing to do. Always file your health insurance first. The next thing you have is you can then submit whatever health insurance paid, which you paid out of pocket. You submit that to your automobile insurance company. You get paid under your medical payments policy if you have it. So you're collecting twice for the same bill. Then the person who causes the accident is not relieved in any way, shape, or form in the state of Virginia because those bills have already been paid. They don't get to use that as an excuse. So the defendant, in that case, is still responsible for the full amount of the medical bills, and you collect from them theoretically if liability is not an issue. So with medical payments and health insurance, you can collect up to 3 times for one medical bill. And Virginia allows this because Virginia basically says if there's going to be somebody who gets a windfall in these situations, it's going to be the injured party. and the defendant is not going to get the benefit of those bills being paid. If you had to go to court, go in front of a jury, the plaintiff can submit those full bills. The defense can't say, hey, insurance has already paid for this twice. They can't say it. It's not admissible in court. So it's good insurance to have. If you don't have it, check your policy, see if you have it. It's not a bad idea to add it. Again, not necessary if you have health insurance, but a good idea either way.
How much should we have of the med pay?
Again, policy started at $1,000, so it's what you feel comfortable paying, essentially. $36 over 6 months for $20,000 in coverage, though, I think is pretty cheap. Again, unfortunately, I should say, I had the opportunity to use mine. It may be something that you'll never use. But or automobile insurance in general is something you may never use if you're a good driver and you've never involved in accidents and had that good fortune. But many of us don't.
Just because you're a good driver doesn't mean somebody's not gonna hit you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can't control what other people do.
No, and the majority of our cases that we handle in an automobile setting are people who are sitting at a red light and just get rear-ended, or at a stop sign waiting to make a turn and get rear-ended. Rear-ended accidents are the majority of our cases, and those are certainly situations where our clients are doing absolutely nothing wrong. And so that's a side note for bourbon drinkers and so forth. If you are driving out on the road, you've had a couple of bourbons or something, just be aware. You're sitting at a red light, you get hit from behind, not your fault, doesn't matter, but
You're in trouble.
that officer smells that alcohol in your breath. You know, you may feel fine, but as you pointed out, anything could happen, especially even when you're being careful and being a good driver. So,
Is there an aggregate on that med pay?
aggregate.
As much as it would pay? Say I have a van full of kids
Mm-hmm.
and parents don't want to sue me, they just want their medical bills taken care of.
It will cover each person up to the amount of coverage you have. So if you have 10,000 and there are 10 kids in your car, every kid is entitled to up to 10,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, it's very good insurance. A lot of people don't know about it. Most people do not have it. It's something that if you go to an insurance agent, they may talk to you about it. But a lot of our clients now go online, do all their stuff online. It's generally not explained to them. People don't know what it is. And if they do have health insurance, they totally blow it off. But it's one thing that we do when our clients come in there, like today, we try to educate them about their policies, what they have currently that can help them out, and what they can do going forward to improve their coverage in case this happens again. Now, things that I didn't mention on there, obviously, too, you don't have to go back over, but other things that you may have is rental reimbursement, lost wages, things of that nature. You can also add them in a lot of automobile policies as well. Rental reimbursement is a big hit with most people, because I will tell you, a lot of times when clients come in after being in an accident, there's an investigation that goes on with the at-fault party's insurance, and you may not qualify to get a rental car for weeks after an accident, a lot of time, before that investigation's done. So adding rental reimbursement on your policy, again, you'll pay a deductible, you could use that rental car right then and there. Hopefully the other side will do their investigation, pick up the liability, and you'll get reimbursed for the deductible, and the automobile insurance will get reimbursed for paying for the rental car as well. But as I mentioned before, these are the things that you can qualify for damages in the state of Virginia. A lot of these things are self-explanatory. Bodily injury is the injury that you suffered. You're allowed to collect for that. Any lost wages that you've incurred as a result of the accident, I will tell you that if lost wages are claimed, usually tax returns and so forth are going to be required to back up what your claim is, which is sometimes a little difficult for us self-employed folks to say how much we've lost, in profits for missing a couple of days of work or so forth. Medical bills, obviously, again, the defendant is responsible entirely for the full amount of the medical bills, whether insurance is paid on it or not. Your property damage, obviously, same thing. If your vehicle is damaged, the other side is responsible for paying it. Pain and suffering, something that you can't necessarily put a dollar amount on, But it is something that is a factor that insurance companies have to take into consideration when paying off on damages claims. Obviously, injuries that are objective in nature, broken bones, surgery on something, clearly are worth more than somebody stating, they have a neck or back pain issue or headache or things of that nature. Those other things are definitely important, and don't get me wrong, they are extremely debilitating. But something that an insurance company can generally see proof of, they're going to pay a little bit more in pain and suffering. And as we all know, you can't see a headache, you can't see back pain. Sometimes you can see the cause for back pain, but you can't see the pain itself. Mental anguish, not as big a component in most cases, but obviously there are cases where I have clients all the time who get in major accidents and they don't want to drive anymore. Or they just don't want to, they got an accident on the interstate, they don't want to drive on the interstate anymore. The problem with this component a lot of times though is clients don't want to go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, or anything to treat for this. And generally when you're making those claims about being fearful of driving, insurance companies aren't going to take your word for it. They're going to want to see some sort of medical documentation to back up that claim. I will tell you now, in I think the entire state of Virginia, there is a backlog on mental services in general.
Yes.
I have a current client right now who got in a bad accident and she doesn't want to drive, period. And she has been seeking help, and she's in Chesapeake, but she's been seeking help for this for the last 4 months, and she hasn't been able to get an appointment. So there is a backlog for that, which makes that component even more difficult. Inconvenience. Inconvenience, obviously, losing your vehicle, not being able to go to your job. I had one time a case where a grandfather got into an accident and he missed his grandson's graduation. Things like that are compensable. And that case with the grandfather helped me settle the case. We were haggling back and forth, me and the insurance company, and we were fairly close. And talked to my clients, like, is there anything else you can tell me about this? How did this affect your life? He told me that, bam. Called the adjuster back, said, hey, this is what happened. This guy missed his grandson's graduation. I was like, you get me any grandparent on that jury, and I tell them that, what do you think is going to happen?
Oh,
And case settled. So inconvenience is sometimes a very good component to bridge the gap when you are having issues negotiating between the two sides. Embarrassment. Embarrassment generally happens with incidents where there is some sort of scarring involved. Where that typically occurs most in our practices are dog bite cases. Clearly, if there is any type of dog bite on the face or any part of the body that is normally visible when wearing clothes, those cases tend to recover more for the embarrassment aspect of it. And as well as the mental anguish. A lot of the dog bite cases that we have are not dog bites, they are dog attacks. And the mental toll that that will take on children in particular who are attacked by dogs is very significant. So for mental anguish and embarrassment usually happens or come to fruition most often in our dog bite cases. All right, so what to remember and tie in all this stuff. All right, minimum coverage, as I said, currently it states, currently minimum coverage in the state of Virginia are $30,000 per person, $60,000 per accident. In 2 years, it's going to go up on July 25 to $50,000 per person and $50,000 per accident. I still recommend that increase of going up to $100,000 per person, $300,000 per accident, and that's the minimum that I would like to see clients have, just to give them some sort of peace of mind. And that's primarily, again, because of the rising healthcare costs. Vehicles also aren't built quite as well as, in my opinion, in doing this for 25 years, not built quite as well as they used to. Yes, they crumble a lot more, which is designed to take the force off of the individual inside the car. But we also see that with car compartments caving in a little bit more, there's more catastrophic injuries now today than there were when I started doing this 25 years ago. So with health costs the way that they are, $100,000 per person, $300,000 per accident is definitely what I recommend. And again, just to let you know as well, if you are hit by somebody else, you are going to be able to stack that liability coverage of the defendant with your uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage, which is going to provide you a little bit more coverage as well. Statute of limitations on automobile accidents in most courts in the state of Virginia, it's 2 years. You have 2 years from the date of the accident to file a lawsuit in the case. We always recommend trying to take action as soon as the accident happens for investigative purposes and so forth. But we do have many clients who will try to negotiate claims themselves with the insurance company, which is perfectly fine, but then they get lowballed and they come to us right on the eve of the statute of limitations. Sometimes we won't take those cases, only because we don't know who the other party is, and obviously if we filed suit, got the wrong party, it's malpractice on our part. So the earlier you go to an attorney, the better. I certainly also recommend, whether you retain an attorney or not, call one. Find out what your options are, find out what the laws are. I have so many people who have come in over the years and come to me at the last minute. They will, I'll ask them, hey, do you have health insurance? Yep. Okay, does your health insurance take care of your bills? Well, no. It's the other side's fault. They're supposed to take care of the bills. Absolutely the wrong thing. And generally speaking, you have a year under most insurance policies to file. And if you don't timely file, insurance ain't gonna cover it. And you're stuck with that bill. So, again, always file your health insurance on these cases. Do not rely on the other side. There's no such thing as a 100% guarantee in the law, ever. So, other than being injured in an accident, the next worst thing is getting stuck with medical bills for something that's not your fault. Make sure you do that. And within 2 years, definitely come talk to an attorney. Talk to one immediately after the accident, whether you want to retain one or not. Higher awards. Yes, we are getting into an era with the, like I said, with the cost of medical bills, that awards are getting higher. Now, one of the reasons that I want people to prepare themselves in case they cause an accident in particular, because let's say that you have $30,000 in coverage, and a person goes and gets an award of $60,000. They only have $30,000 in coverage as well. Where does that additional $30,000 come from? It comes from you. So if you're not insured enough, and there is an award higher than your insurance coverage, you're on the hook for it. Now, as the old adage goes, you can't get blood out of a stone, and I can tell you that in 25 years of practice, I have not gone after anybody individually, but only because I haven't had a situation where I've had somebody of wealth on the other side that I could go after. I had one case recently that did get settled where I did have a person of means, and yes, I made the threat of going after that person individually, and it was warranted as well. But for the most part, it doesn't happen. But where it does happen a lot of times is where somebody is uninsured for some reason. The other party's insurance company pays. Their insurance company will come after you a lot of times, and that's called subrogation. And that happens a lot in property damage cases in particular. So if you don't have enough insurance, if your property damage coverage is $20,000 and you do $40,000 of damage to the other person's vehicle, and they only have $20,000 in coverage for whatever reason, yeah, the insurance company is going to pay $20,000. They're going to come after you for that $20,000, and then the other side, the actual injured party with the vehicle that's damaged, can come after you for $20,000. Now, the important part about that is that if you don't pay and they get a judgment against you, they can submit that judgment to the DMV, and your license is suspended until you pay it off. Now, unless alcohol is involved, you can always file bankruptcy and discharge it. But who wants to do that? Who wants to ruin their credit? So it's always just a good idea for peace of mind to make sure that you have enough coverage. All right, and I want to thank everybody for your time and attention today. It's not the sexiest subject in the world, I know, but unfortunately, after doing this for 25 years, it's an important topic to at least look into. So if you don't know what your coverages are, pull out your declaration page, check them out, get on your phone, call your agent, find out what you have, and make sure you've got enough coverage to protect you or protect somebody that you hit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.